Good evening, South Florida. Thank you so much for joining me tonight on Hottalk, South Florida's #1 community affairs show. Each and every Sunday night at 11, we highlight the achievements and discuss the challenges of our community with you and an engaging panel of guests. And I invite you, as always, to have a seat. Perhaps we'll have a cocktail and enjoy tonight's conversation. Back in the building once again, my dear friend, Dr. Tim Yates, and his lovely wife, Erika Yates. How are you all?
We're doing good. How are you? Hello to everyone in the audience.
Doing wonderful.
There you go.
We had date night last night. It's wonderful.
We talk about that off mic all the time, that, you know, our lives are really, really busy, just like yours are. And come Friday night, you think you want to do something, you know, but you get home, it's like, oh, maybe next week.
We had that conversation because we could have just stayed on the couch. Give us 4 more minutes, and we didn't move. We were like, no, we got to go.
We invest in each other. It's important.
That doesn't come around that often. So.
I love that. Yeah, because you both have really busy schedules.
Yes.
And for those of you who may have missed them before, now you've heard Dr. Yates on literally every month and more. I met him through, an illness. I've talked about it at length now, but I have, what exactly is it called? What is venous deficiency?
So, it is a deficiency in your veins, but it's called venous insufficiency. But you also have lymphedema, Jill.
Yeah.
And some of that's related to the body transformation you've been going through. And it's a stage-by-stage process, and what you're having and what we've seen with you is sort of an ebb and flow. We go through periods where things are under great control, and then we go through periods where we sort of lose control a little bit, and we just got to sort of get things back in line.
And it's odd because, I swear that lymphedema is the radio personality's disease. Because, of course, you all know Wendy Williams is probably the most famous person that you know that has, or you've heard of that has lymphedema. And she, she's really, really thin. And I always thought that maybe, I didn't know what it was, what I was dealing with. But it wasn't until I started losing weight that we realized that it was lymphedema. And how just uneven my body became. Like I was losing weight on one side and on the other thigh I was not moving. And so, it is a long-term process. And when you have, especially those of you who have been dealing with things, you've been looking at that black spot on your leg for 6 months and haven't done anything, or that pain in your back that won't go away. Once you've been waiting, 2 or 3 years, and now finally you're like, well, maybe I should. It is a whole course of therapy. It's a whole, whatever you haven't been doing for the past 10 years, okay, you're about to be fixing for the next 5 years. Just be prepared for it. And find people, and you got to find people that you really trust to tell you the truth, and that you feel safe with. A lot of times, I've been through a lot of doctors, and I'm like, don't finish your statement. I'm going to come back in here. Yep. That, whatever that is real. And if you had that experience, I was talking to somebody in the line at Publix who, knew my story. And the same thing happened to her, but she didn't like or trust the doctor. And she never went back. And I looked down at her ankles, and it was both of them now. Mm-hmm. And it was that, it almost looks like a tortoise, when it gets really, and I just shared the information with her, and I was like, I said he's up in Delray. Oh, girl, that's too far. I was like, girl, nothing's too far to lose a foot.
That's right.
I was like, but he does have office in Sterling, and you can go see him there, and that's all you can really do. Is lead them to the water and to the healing, and then and hope they take advantage. And so we've been developing our relationship, and then Tim and his wife came, and Erika and I started talking, and she was telling me about how she, was like in life coach lane, and they both, they met in the ER. I want to say they met in the ER, just because it sounds like the beginning, right? And and they became friends, and then lovers, and then man and wife. And so you came, but they were both in the hospital, and then you came out of the hospital. Correct. And now you are doing more life coaching. You're in that space now.
Yes.
Yeah. How did you transfer? And is it better? Because both of them are dealing with, people, helping people fix themselves. Mm-hmm. And did you find being in the ER just was physically too exhausting for you, or taking too much of your time, and you switched?
So actually, my career over 21 years as a nurse has led me to do, my master's and my degrees and have different opportunities. So in being in leadership for the last 15 years, I spent a lot of time actually developing my teams, developing, women, promoting, inspiring, or, just identifying great talent.
Yeah.
And I felt like a lot of the things that I did was kind of helping people get their head in the game. My docs with new practices. And I spent a lot of time transitioning new physicians to be able to be leaders and lead teams and work with people. And, just sharing a lot of my stories that could help them. And then I realized, I heard about an executive coach, and that my organization at the time was also providing. So let me look into this. This may be something that, just for my self-development. And that took me on a whole development journey for myself. I actually did it just for myself. Tim went to the initial session with me in New York City, and it was over 3 years. I did a lot of work on myself to identify triggers in me, things that was I living my purposeful life, right? Was I being my best self? And I brought that back, and it worked, actually working with my teams and my colleagues. And then I decided in 2020, I opened my business and, I started with my first client. And then, earlier this year, I decided to transition completely.
Awesome.
For flexibility. And I think that is that fulfills me in my purpose.
And it's interesting when you mention triggers, how do you, I'm coming back to you, Timothy.
I'm good, Jill. I'm just watching the video.
How do you, in short order, help people identify what their triggers are?
Initially, it's you identify that actually pretty quickly. And it's really...
You see it.
When
you sit down with somebody, you see it, but they can get up and walk away crazy. And that don't trigger me. And they will BIT all the way home about how she don't know what she's talking about. That is not a trigger for me. It's like, clearly, it is a trigger.
So on point.
Right?
That doesn't bother me. No, not in one bit. It's been 20 minutes and I'm still thinking about it.
Exactly. Yeah.
Well, that's how you know it's a trigger. And it's a lot of it is transition, change, new habits, needing new habits, wanting to achieve goals and haven't been able to get there. Feeling stuck is very common post-COVID. Stuck has a lot of different meanings, and kind of, peeling back the onion, so to speak, and finding out what's your stuck. Is it that, you need help planning, you need help goal planning, you need help getting to the next level, you have too many options, you want to transition your careers, you need help taking action. So, and it's very, very interesting to me. And being a clinician actually is what helps me as a coach, because obviously, we come with a different level of understanding about things. We, empathy is what we live, right? We genuinely care about your well-being as a person. So a little bit more holistic in the way that I coach. And, you really, the people actually, we get through, we get actually direct and to the point because of the trust. Like we talked about, you just had an example of, somebody that didn't trust their doc and didn't go back.
Right.
So that's what we form in the first 5 minutes of me just talking to somebody. They trust me because we've all, I've been a clinician for 20 years. I've been a nurse at the bedside. And,
there is a level of discipline that is the through line in what you've done professionally. I think that, when people who are really ready to go there, it's like, okay, yeah, you really have to have a lot of discipline to be in a hospital.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? Because, the first time, I always want to ask a doc, when was the first time somebody threw poop in your face? Because at some point, something crazy like that has happened.
The better question is, when was the last time?
See?
Look, I tell people when they come into my office to say, honestly, they say, I don't like going to doctors. It's like, I don't either. I don't even like being in the office. I don't like being in the hospital. I want to run away every time I'm here, but, we got to do what we got to do. It's discipline. You nailed it.
Yeah, totally. So
I laugh because it's so near and dear to my heart.
Exactly.
So, and it's not even my kids. That's the thing.
Right.
It really is.
It's grown people.
But you're talking about empathy. I remember distinctly when I was considering going into medicine, I went with my dad. He was a pulmonary intensive care doctor, took care of really sick people, all in the ICU. And we were going on round. I went with him just to see what he did because I didn't really know. It was just early on. And he went in to see a patient, and I went into the room, and I stood at the outside of the room kind of looking in because I wasn't sure if I wanted to. And I see the guy sit up and spit on my dad's face and his shirt. And my dad just kind of wiped the stuff away and kept talking, filled out what he had to fill in, walked out, typed in his orders in the computer, and didn't at all acknowledge what had just happened. And I didn't know if this was some mind tricks, his Jedi mind trick he was doing or whatever. Right. And I said, what just happened? How are you not just, how did you not punch the guy? How did you not, freak out? Right? Everyone
rip out his IV.
And he looked at me and he said, Tim, I've been doing this for a while, and you can't take anything personally because that guy just got told a few weeks ago that he's got about 3 months left to live. And every single day of his life is the worst day of his life. Yeah. Because he doesn't want to die.
Right.
It's not about me. I didn't do anything to him. It's about his station in life. And you got to remember that there's someone on the other end and their story counts. You're just there to help them figure it out. And I was just mind blown. I was like, you're better than me. I can't. But we learn, through experience to take that off, leave what we have to at the door, and do what we can to help where we're,
That's a lot. Were you, and since you went there, were you inspired to become a doctor because of your father?
Well, that's a long story, maybe over drinks, but long story short, Dad, he was busy, very dedicated, he worked hard, very well respected. This is back in Omaha, Nebraska. And I didn't really early on want to do it. I ended up pursuing music, Spanish. My major was in Spanish language and a minor in vocal music, for example. And I studied guitar and other things. I was thinking about going to music school after that. And
you could have been a rock star.
Well, hey, maybe we still can.
Okay.
But no, I didn't want to because he was gone all the time, and I just looked like if I have kids or whatever. I wasn't thinking about kids, but if I do have kids, am I going to be around? During all that time, I was working as an interpreter, a Spanish English interpreter, largely in hospitals. And as I was graduating college and kind of going through my head, am I really going to go to music school? What am I going to do? I kind of had this existential crisis of like, holy, I gotta have to pay bills and like pay for college and like have a job. And I was like, am I going to really be like playing jingles for like the cereal commercial on TV because I'm not going to really be a rock star? And I kind of went through this whole process. I was like, wait a minute, I'm doing medical interpretation. I'm in hospitals. I kind of like talking to the people in that setting. I kind of like, so maybe I should think about, my dad did it. Maybe I could do it too. And that's kind of how it happened. Wow. Yeah.
That's awesome because you do. You have a really good bedside manner, and I think the thing that I pick up most of the time, is how other people like in your office react to you. You know what I'm saying? If everybody kind of scours when you come in the room, it's like maybe not. But when people smile and they're like, "Oh, he's here." They love him. They do, and their prep game for him was what did it. You know what I'm saying? Like and it wasn't like, here he comes, damn. Okay. No, they were like energized. They put their music, they had a system. It's like, they're enjoying being in this space, and that eases your mind, especially when you go to a doctor or a therapist. That really eases your mind. And because of that, you've made a lot of friends. And one of your dear friends is here with us today. Salewa. How are you, Diva?
I'm good. Salewa, Adenikinju.
Salewa. Girl, I'm going to have you have to write that down phonetically for me.
I know.
So that would be SHA.
Shallow water.
Yep.
Shallow
water actually does help.
Shallow water.
Yeah.
Girl, I'm going to say shallow water. You going to give me like I love it. Girl, my name is not shallow water.
It's not, but it helps phonetically understand. I'm Nigerian.
Shallow water.
Yeah.
So now how long have you been in the States? Did you practice in the States?
Yes, I practiced in the States. I did basically most of my education here.
Yeah.
My family moved here when I was about 8 years old.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
You know, when you got here, I thought you were a gymnast. I was like, that must not be. You must hear that a lot.
I do.
Yeah.
I pretty much ran track the majority of my life. So
Oh,
did my
okay.
parents. So it's a little bit of a genetic component. I'm not gonna lie.
Oh,
And I
okay.
just kept in shape ever since.
So how did you make that transition?
From
Being an athlete to a doctor.
wow. Okay, so this actually parallels to what we were just talking about. It's all about discipline.
Mhm.
That's the foundation of when you commit to doing something. Especially
That's a word right there.
especially a sport like track. It's individualistic, but it really is about your team. But you decide every single day to show up, and you're going to put 110% of yourself into your workout. If you don't, your coach is going to know, and you're going to know, and ultimately, you're not going to help your team. So when I decided to actually pursue medicine, I was actually thinking about psychology. So it's actually funny because Yates here, he trained me into being in interventional radiology, but I originally was attracted to medicine because of psychology. I always wondered, why do people behave the way they behave?
I was a clinical psychology major.
There
Well,
you
how
go.
about that?
There you go.
Yep, and I initially, I was young, and I was like, I can't take all this home with me. It's just too much going on. But it made me feel good that that I could listen to people's stories and help them dissect them. And I could tell their stories a lot of times better than they would, and they would feel better about themselves after I told their stories.
It's empowering.
And that's how I knew how to shift. Yeah.
It's empowering
Yeah.
to do that. So I remember very vividly during college one day, I was also volunteering at a hospital, just, actually at Nicholas Children's.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's
Small world.
full circle. And I remember meeting these kids literally on their worst days.
Mm-hmm.
Same thing with their parents. And just being able to bring a smile to their face. It sounds really cliche, but that was fulfilling for me. And all my life, if you know anything about Africans, our parents make sure we get good grades. So
Yes.
science and technology was always up my alley. So I started thinking that moment as well, is this something I should kind of apply to be part of one of my life's pillars or purpose? So I decided, and that's kind of how the transition happened.
You know what? And I was going to say that for later, but since we're on our way into the break, what do you think that is? Literally every Nigerian I have ever known has a sense of discipline,
Yeah.
unlike any people I've ever met. I mean, and it is like across the board. It's not just randomly one or two people. What did we miss on the way over on that ship
Honestly,
that you all got? Well, you all still on there.
honestly,
For real.
it really is a privilege to
Mhm.
know my culture.
Mhm.
I was actually speaking about this to my boyfriend last night. He also is Nigerian, and we were comparing ourselves to African Americans
Mm-hmm.
who physically are here in America, and we're stripped away from our culture because a lot of them did come from Nigeria in terms of the slave route.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the biggest thing is two things. Failure was never an option for us. And that was from the moment we were born. All of our names have very important meanings. So you're kind of fulfilling a prophecy, or you're saying a prophecy into your child's life. Whether that might be God is with you, or whether that might be you are rich, or your family is rich, or you come from wealth, for example, or you have favor. These are our names. So every time we speak that, we're speaking it into existence, if that makes sense.
It makes complete sense.
So we always just felt empowered.
I love that.
And whenever you say it to someone else and they say it back, it's like a chorus.
Yes,
Saying it back to
The whole village is saying it with you.
Yeah. Oh, I love
What
that.
does Salewa mean?
So my name, it's in English, it kind of sort of translates to God didn't give them a random child, essentially. I chose the family or the home that I was meant to be with.
Wow.
You can imagine in high school, this was a very big problem for me. I was like, are you sure this is the
Are you
family?
sure
Are you
this is
sure,
the
God?
family?
Are you
Of course,
sure?
of course.
But that's kind of what my name means.
That's beautiful.
Oh, okay. What does your name mean? Call your mama right now. And we're going to take a break, and we'll be back on the other side. I am Jill Tracey, and this is Hottalk on Hot 105. And welcome back to Hottalk. For those of you who are just joining us, where were you? What were you doing? But I am talking to, back in the building, Dr. Timothy Yates and his beautiful wife, Erika, and Salewa. And we started the conversation about triggers and how a lot of people allow the things that trigger them to keep them from their greatness and their health, and can shorten your life. And very candidly, during the break, I was sharing with Timothy and Salewa that previously, if I went into an office and I didn't know either one of them, right? 9 times out of 10, I would want to go to Salewa because she's a black woman. But I would probably think because Timothy is an older white man, Jewish, that...
maybe Jewish transplant, but not
Jewish-ish.
Jewish, not really Jewish. Not Jewish.
Jewish, like kinda.
Not really.
No, where are your people from? They Irish?
Irish.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so
English, Irish. Yeah.
Irish,
But the assumption for Jewish.
Right?
I do live in Boca. I understand.
There you go.
I understand. Yeah.
And I probably would have went to him just on the appearance. He probably has more experience. He's probably made more money doing it. All of those things that have absolutely nothing to do with how they'll be able to help me live my best life. And so I wanted to really kind of to ask you all, have you been presented with that, all three of you? Because Erika is working, on your mind as well as helping you change your mindset. And I'm gonna tell you right now, no, she is not a former Miss America, but you will think she is when you meet her.
Yes, queen.
So do not be intimidated by that. Because a lot of times that will happen, and I'm sure, it's happened, that people, somebody who doesn't present perhaps as built to suit a fashion model size or look, will see you and be like, please, she has no idea about my life. Do you know what I'm saying? And we'll dismiss it just on that, and that has absolutely nothing to do with who is going to be there for you and who can really help you. And a lot of times we miss those blessings because of all those kind of biases and triggers, to your point where we started. So how do you respond to it when you see it? And then how do you help that person move through it? Because it's like, okay, it's in the room. All right, so now how do I maneuver this? Because I know I can help this person be healthy and be happy. And, how do I shift in here to help them get to the place where they're comfortable with me?
That is such a good point, Jill, because appearances are somebody's perception is their reality, right?
Yeah.
So how do we shift that? How do how do we find that common denominator? How did, people say, oh, you look at me and you think one thing. I'm a girl that grew up in the Bronx.
Mm-hmm.
People don't know that. Or people don't know that, XYZ, about my family, my history. And there's always something that, you get where I think in healthcare, get where people are coming pretty quickly.
Mm-hmm.
And we're able to snap them out of it and say, look, I know what you're going through.
Right.
I've been there. Or I got you. You're scared.
Mm-hmm.
You've been here before. So once you kind of have that click with them, and we kind of tend to know it, especially that empathy is built that way, and trust. So you have to get it quickly so that you can break that barrier, and then you can change them a little bit.
Yeah.
And it usually works. I would say 90+% of the time.
Yeah.
We find that common denominator quickly because of that. Because she's too young. She's too
right.
this. He's too old. He's too white. This one is too this. So you do have to find a common denominator somehow.
Well, I'll tell you, I don't think I told you, but
I
when I went in to have that one just really painful procedure, I hadn't really I think I met him once or twice, but I hadn't really paid too much attention to him. And then
that happens.
and then they were the nurses, were set up everything, and then they asked me what I wanted to hear. And then I saw him, I looked up at him, and I was like, okay, I need you to play D'Angelo, Me and Those Dreamy Eyes of Mine. And I can do this. I swear to God. My hand to God. I was like, okay, I can just focus right here. That's playing. I will live through this. No lie. No, and
That's
yeah,
hysterical.
but that's what it was. I like really focused on his eyes because they were just really honest. They just really I was like, okay, he got me. You know what I'm saying? It's just like and because I am a psych major too, his whole body composition was like, I'm on it, and I got 15 patients today, but each one of them is gonna get the best of me right now.
Exactly.
His best 15 minutes, and I'm out, and I respected that as well. Yeah. So that's my story.
I'm glad I got a beer because I'm blushing right now. One thing that occurred to me during the first segment was and I'm sure it's the same for everyone here in healthcare, about 97% of what we do isn't, for example, Salewa and I are interventional radiologists who spend a lot of time using needles to treat people in a variety of different ways, right? Small catheters, small wires to do really amazing things in a minimally invasive way. That's about 3% of what we do. About 97% of what we do is psychology. It's all psychology. There's a great book called The Four Agreements. It's about 150 pages.
Yes.
Great book, right?
Yes.
Be impeccable with your word.
Mm-hmm.
Take nothing personally. Always do your best and make no assumptions. And it's very simple. Very simple, but it's probably simple doesn't mean it's easy. You have to actually go through the work of doing it. And it gels with the story I told you before. Whatever they're bringing into the room came in the door with them when they're going through something, when a person's going through something.
Yeah.
It has nothing to do with me. Now, how I show up and react to what they're doing has everything to do with me. And my job, it's funny because early on I would react to people emotionally, but now when I see someone's clearly in pain, it's like this opportunity to really be caring to them and to really try to break down the wall because they just want to hear. They want you to hear. Right? They want you to hear what they're saying. Doctors don't listen. We all know that, right? Yeah. Doctors don't listen. If I give them a chance to say what they're saying and I respond to them and show that I'm actually listening, like that's my only job. I know I get paid to do procedures, but my job is to listen. And, companies don't like to hear that, hospitals don't like to hear it, but that's my job.
And it's true because there's a doctor at one of my mother's doctors, and I have him in my phone as no bedside manner.
Yeah.
Because it just absolutely none. But that's all in the story.
It's funny because there's the stereotype that doctors don't listen, but I vividly remember med school, one thing they said, and it's very true. The patients are talking, they're telling you the answer. So I take that.
That's a good one.
I take that very seriously. So to your point, when you were talking about when you meet someone, whether they're going to choose me or Yates or come in with whatever implicit bias on top of the sickness that they're coming to be evaluated for, I take a few things into consideration. The first thing I don't do is I don't shift who I am. I can't pretend to be Yates. I can't pretend to be Erika. I can't pretend to be you.
Right.
What I can do is, like you said, offer them the best version of me in whatever time window that we have. So I present them the facts after listening to what they're telling me. Because half the time, especially if they're coming with a fear or an attitude, it's not me. It's the parking, or it's they're worried because now their mom has to take care of them. So I identify with that simply because all of my patients, they're my family members. They are my responsibility. So the way I treat people, and I tell them, if you were my father, if I was you, especially for the young women that come in, especially for fibroids, I was like, this is what I would do. Or I'm actually not sure. Why don't you go home and think about it, and let's make this decision as a team. Yeah. So the biggest thing is I don't shift who I am. I present them the facts, and I treat them as a family member.
Yeah.
And after establishing kind of those three things, people don't really have a problem seeing me or Yates, depending on the kind of practice that you're at.
Yeah, and I think that there's a little of that. The idea that when you show up at a doctor, particularly when you're really sick, and you really, really want the help, but you're scared, you're going to look at everything as, no, can't do it because of that. No, can't do it because of that. What exactly is that dichotomy? And in all of your practices, what is that dichotomy? And for myself, I will share that when I really wanted to be I really wanted to be with the Iyanla Vanzant. I thought if anybody could understand who I was and would help me and like hold me in that space, that I would not lose my damn mind by saying all of this in front of the world, right? That I wouldn't the rest of my life be like, oh, that's that girl that, you know. What is it that you feel, what have you analyzed? Actually, the better question is, have you analyzed what it is? What is that self-doubt that will allow somebody to be really ill? Like when I showed up to Yates, I was limping. I have been in pain so long and it hurt so bad. My leg was discolored. I mean, it could have fallen off. You know what I'm saying? What do you think that is that allows people to go that far before they come to you? You are readily available at all times.
Mm-hmm.
It's fear, and it's calling it by name makes it real. Even though often, in my opinion, you know, once you give it a name and you realize what it is, it's actually not a monster in the corner of a dark room.
Mm-hmm.
It's actually just a thing. And yes, it might be cancer.
Right.
And yes, it might take your life, but at least you know. Or it might be something very simple, like a few tiny varicose veins that I can fix and your leg is back to normal.
Right.
It's just it's denying all of that time that you're not really looking at it, but feeling it's painful. But it's like, I'm not going to acknowledge it because then it's not real. That's...
Yeah.
And it's the narrative, right, that you play and replay in your head. And I think some of the points that they brought up, you know, being empathetic, being genuine, you know, like I love what Salewa said, that once they come in, they will tell you their story.
Yeah.
And it's usually, so when you're a healthcare professional, you have to, the realization is, I chose to be where I am today, right?
Mm-hmm.
I chose to show up to the hospital because that is my job.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You didn't really have a choice sometimes, right? You are here because you have to be. Somebody made you go, or somebody told you that if you didn't, you may die, right?
Yeah.
So when you approach people, and I think that's why empathy is so important initially, and then really showing your authentic self, and like Shalwa said, being I'm just going to give you my best version is so important, because I know that you don't want to be here. It's my job to be here, but how can I show up for you so that you trust me pretty quickly and we can resolve your problem, because that is also why I am here.
Mm-hmm.
So it's trying to get through also their narrative in their head and break that down pretty quickly. And it's always fear. It's a story that I heard. My mom did this. This one had a bad experience at the hospital, and this is what happened. This is why I don't go.
Yeah.
But it's also probably because that person didn't go and they were overdue for 10 or 15 years.
Right.
So
and literally, you know, everybody I know, black, white, or otherwise, has a story. When you were just saying that, I don't know what made me think of it. Well, I knew what made me think of it. But my great-grandmother had breast cancer, and she never told anybody. And my mother happened to see it when she was trying to help her get in the bath. And she was like, no, I got it. And when she moved her gown, it was just dead tissue. It was, you know. And we all living in the house together, and we had never seen that, and it was just far. It was too far, and you know, nothing they could do to save her. So, and you know, and I asked that because so many of us, I hadn't thought about that in a long time, but so many of us are living with somebody, or know a family member or a friend or somebody who's dealing with something like that, and you cannot convince them to go take care of it, or I don't have money, or I don't have. There's always a million excuses for because so many times, I forgot exactly what the statistic is. I'll give it to you all on the morning show after the show. But so many statistics of like 70% of illnesses that present, you know, after 6 months or incurable. I can't remember exactly what it is, but the number of people who show up, you know, 6 months or more after the illness is set in have the least chance of survival from what it is. And I think if you could offer anybody who is a caregiver or in that space that's dealing with someone that they know that they need to do something to get that person in, what would you offer?
I think it all starts with a conversation. I think it takes so long for someone to seek help because us as humans, especially if they're the head of the household, which it sounds like your great grandmother was, it
And it
forces
usually is that.
Yeah, of course.
It forces us to realize our non-infinite nature. We all like to think that we're going to be here forever, and we're not. So by addressing that, that's where the fear kind of seeps in that one day this is going to stop.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of patients wait so long because at this point it's stopping their natural daily life. So if I was to offer anything, it's just a conversation.
Yeah.
Who are you? What drives you? What's your passion? What do you do for a living? What's your family like?
No,
How
I'm
is this-
saying, what would you offer to that family, that caregiver, who then goes back in their room and cries because they know that the person is dying and they don't have the words or they don't know what to do. Do I drag her out? Do I just take it?
Well,
Go ahead.
Listen, something that I think, Shallow and I have seen in our practices is this the really important concept of self-autonomy. Every person is their own person. And I came into the world, as far as I can tell, with my simple faculties. I came into the world alone, and as far as I can tell, I go out alone. And we have a lot of stuff in between, right? And a lot of connection, and we're all so connected on so many levels that we don't realize, I think, particularly in 2022 with not just internet, but everything else. But I guess the point is, just because someone has got a problem, they also have the choice to do with the information of that problem, the knowledge of that problem, what they want, because they're in control.
Right.
You can elect to not do treatment. And that's one of the things I think patients assume too. If I get diagnosed, I have to have chemotherapy. I have to have my leg amputated. You don't have to do anything except for die and maybe possibly pay taxes, right? As the saying goes.
That's the saying, right?
I mean,
death and taxes. That's
but you
it.
got to come to grips with reality. I think Shala's point's so good. Like, we're all grappling with the fact that we're not infinite.
Right.
And if you are blessed with the ability to understand that and live a full present life, knowing that I could walk out of the studio right now and get killed on 95, and I live the fullest. But I say that not to be cheeky.
I know.
If I live full now, I can deal with those types of information potentially more gracefully. So the conversation's everything, and realizing,
And probably also embracing the community that's around you. That caregiver, that moment when they're feeling now the pressure and the pain of their loved one's illness, it's not the time to isolate. It's what we want to do. But we have to surround ourselves with the community, with the family that loves whoever's ill. And I think that in itself, if they see that community physically in front of them, it might empower them to actually get help.
Yeah.
So I would just say, don't do it alone.
Yeah. Okay, Erika.
Same thing. I think this is why this is important too, to so that people understand what options they have. Like Tim said, they have the option to say no. You have the option to educate, but you also have the opportunity to also go in and ask questions, and to do something better than whoever was before you. Create a different narrative for yourself. It's why look at what happened when you didn't.
Right.
What is the worst that can happen?
Right.
The worst that can happen is, what you don't know, and you don't know.
Yeah.
And that's what people are afraid of too. They're afraid of knowing. They know something's wrong. They're just afraid that somebody's going to
call
it a name, and now, I'm forced.
It's a real thing. I got to do
it's
something.
Real.
Yeah.
But you know what? We have to be better. We have to take action for ourselves. And like Shalwa said, remember your family. Remember who really takes the brunt of your choices as well. Who does that affect?
Oh, yeah.
And it's selfish, right? Sometimes too, we have to get out of our brain and say, I'm doing this because I know if I don't do this, and my child has to be the one that takes care of me, my child's child has to be the one that takes care of me, and we can't live that way anymore. That the accountability and responsibility it's not all about you, because then it's not about you. You're being selfish in that choice and not getting help, because now you're putting it on somebody else. And that's also what we need to think about. And somebody around you needs to say, don't do it for you, do it for me.
All right, Reverend Yates. That was a word right there.
Wow.
Because that is exactly it. And almost, I mean, every time that you take that path, I guarantee you it's getting you closer to that person and them taking care of themselves as well. Oh, that was so good. Okay, so listen. And it always happens when they come in. You know, a lot of times, you know, people think that when you have doctors and clinicians and people on, you know, it's just to talk about, okay, well, it's cancer. What is cancer? How do you get it? Where do you go? No, there's so much, just like your life. It is so complex and it's so different. And there's so many different layers to it. Those that we, you know, hope will love and care for us in our hardest times, you are also made of that same material. And I've been really, really blessed to meet so many of them, like you've met tonight. And then I met Yates through Ashby, who is the heart doctor that's been on. And then Yates introduced me to his wife Erika, and then they both introduced me to Salewa.
Yes. Okay.
Thank you. And on that note, we're leaving, so I don't mess it up again. You can listen to this episode on the Hot 105 website, and they will be back again next month. If they want to reach out to you individually, how can people reach out?
On all social media platforms, KINJUMD, KINJUMD.
Awesome.
You can reach me via Twitter or Instagram at SOBE, that's SOBE_vascular, and also through our Palm Vascular website.
Awesome. There we go.
And you can reach me on my website, enhance-coaching.com.
And you can find me in the club, bottle full of Bud. Okay, no, I'm kidding. You can find me in the morning on the Ricky Smiley Morning Show, and you can always go to hot105fm.com to listen to this show. Love you, mean it. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.